This is how I start my conversations, by the way. Laugh, please. In some other spaces, I normally say you need to manage people's expectations. You know, you get angry when people don't react a certain way, but you've not asked them to react that way. So me, when I want you to laugh, I say, laugh, please. Okay? Anyway, so let me tell you, when I started as a young pharmacist, I totally get what Dr. Liu just talked about, where you're thrown on the deep end, you're expected to deliver things, and you're asked serious questions, right? Then you're like, this was not covered in school. And way back, there was not so much like Google, you know, and ChatGPT and all these things to tell you what to do. So I had a Juliet, but Juliet became my ChatGPT. And then when I got where I got, and I continued growing, I realized now you need to start pulling people from behind you. I am one of the few pharmacists, I believe, and I dare say, who has worked in close to 8 specialties of pharmacy. You go in a little bit, you look and you wonder, do I want to do this? Then you step out. Then you go, you step out. Yeah? And in those stepping in and stepping out, I stepped into clinical trials. You guys remember Partners Prep? I see the people who know Partners Prep nodding, the clinical trial people. So we used to work there a long time ago. And when I was there, I realized there's also an aspect of regulatory. It's from there that I transitioned actually into regulatory. And I used to stalk Nick Kisenga online. He just doesn't know. I used to stalk you back then. I thought I want to become a clinical trials monitor. You guys, there's a lot of things that pharmacists can do. And so today here, I'm not about to talk about all those things. I'm going to talk about Reliance. How many people know Reliance? Yeah. Okay, so I don't need to define it. I just wanted to check that knowledge level first to know where to start from. These views that I'm going to share today are my views. They do not belong to my company. I currently serve in the capacity of Senior Regulatory Affairs Manager at AstraZeneca. I look after Sub-Saharan Africa. And in my moving around, I have learned why authorities differ, right? You go to West Africa, they're telling you one thing. You go to South Africa, they're telling you one thing. And you learn as you go. In all that, I've learned that many authorities in Africa have adopted a risk-based approach. How they do their things is based off a risk-based approach for medicine registration, and created sort of like a work-sharing model where they've created unilateral reliance pathways, okay? And regionalization models to facilitate the availability of medicine. At the end of the day, we are the gatekeepers. You know, a drug will not come and start being sold here in Kenya if you've not gone through the authorities, registered the product, brought it in, looked at its safety, efficacy profile, and brought it in. There are other pathways that you could use, maybe orphan drug, named patient approach, but that is not a long-term way of bringing a molecule in. So if you're looking to bring a molecule in, you're looking to bring medicine to the last person in the village. A lot of times I say I want to make sure that that person in Busia has the medicine that is needed, right? So if that's the case, then we have to have these reliance pathways happening, okay? So I will skip to the last bullet where I say, why is it necessary to have Africa harmonization? Have you guys heard of the Africa Model Law 2016? Yeah? You know what's happening there and the work that's being done. The work that's being done there. We're trying to get Africa to a level where we are able to make submissions at one point and create access to all the African countries. We have the recent pilot for the expression of interest for continental listing that happened, I think it closed, they extended the deadline to February 28th. And they've reopened it, by the way, if you all are interested. You just need to make sure that the products meet that criteria and you put it in Reliance through continental listing, and you can get your product registered in all the member states within 60 to 90 days. That's how fast it gets to, right? So that's why we do Reliance. I'll leave this definition, maybe this is something that is already in the WHO GLP definition of what Reliance is. So I'll skip that and go to the next slide where I'll just tell you, in 2019, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering and Medicine convened an expert committee to study the role of regulatory reliance in enhancing public health. And in the resulting consensus study report, the committee defined two types of reliance activities. There's the one where we know the reliance where we are from a low to middle income country, so we rely on the other stringent authorities. However, did you know that the stringent authorities also have platforms where they can rely on each other? A good example is IMA, how IMA works. And that's what continental listing is looking to achieve. By it doing what it does, by it bringing all these member states to work together, it's going to look something like IMA, but now we're doing like sort of like a bridging gap analysis to understand how that will look like. So horizontal reliance activities, that is say SRA to SRA, where they can use each other's GMP inspection reports or information. So this kind of horizontal reliance is also apparent in various joint assessment activities. And then secondly, you have the unidirectional reliance, where now, this is what now we see in our setup much more. Okay? So why do we need reliance? Why do we need reliance? It's because reliance represents a functional and practical way for regulating medical products in a modern world of globalization, growing public health needs, limited resources, and demand for more and faster and better treatments. Right now, I heard Dr. David talk about gene therapy. We have stem cell therapies. I tell you, it's like these people in the West, they are not sleeping. Yeah? You wake up and then you're like, oh, so what is gene therapy? Oh, okay, and now what is stem cell? And then you see, technology and innovation is moving much faster than the regulation is. So you're telling authority here in Africa to come and register a gene therapy or something, and then you're telling them, you need to take it to NQCL for lab analysis. Checker, please laugh. Right? So you take it to NQCL, and they are looking at you 6 months down the line, and it's, so Reliance helps with such things, right? Because in such a forum, you go to NQCL and you tell them, there's a possible reliance pathway for lab reports. There's a possible reliance pathway for GMP. So is it possible if we provide you reports instead of bringing in the whole product samples? Because these things are not cheap. This regimen has gone through trials, and I'm giving you from the perspective of what I know. The product is coming into the patient, a vial at a crazy amount of money, and you're going to give it to NQCL for visual inspection. And then after that, they're like, okay, so now Reliance helps with that, okay? So if implemented effectively, regulatory reliance can benefit multiple stakeholders. We're talking patients, we're talking consumers, we're talking industry, international development partners, the people in NGOs, say hi, by facilitating and accelerating access to safe and effective, quality-assured medicinal products. So, I know a lot of people are usually concerned about, so if we go through the reliance pathway, then what happens? Yeah? So, when we think of reliance, we need to think about it in terms of sustainable learning and experiences. A lot of times, if you go online and you go to an IMA website, for example, and you get the assessment reports, and you look at the products that are coming in. Those dossiers are at another level if you start reading them, you know? And so you get that exposure here, such that now you start asking those important questions. You go to the authority and you're asking them a lot of English, and they're looking at you and they're telling you, what? I was having a conversation with one of the people from the authority, and they told me, you know, Kenya has gotten to the level where right now it's called to the table to actually evaluate with the authorities. I think it's the Swiss Medic pathway. If you have an innovative product in or whatever in the world, and it's going through that pathway, it goes in through that pathway, and that there's someone from PPP seated there. And so if you make your submission here, at the same time there, you actually get an approval and no hurdles. Because, you know, most of the time, because of Kenya and most of the sub-Saharan African markets, they rely on certain documentation that is required that the eastern countries, is it the eastern? The western countries, who calls states in Achoka?
Western.
The western countries, they already have you know, reference documents that you need locally. And because of that, you need a CPP. But if you go through certain pathways, you can be able to circumnavigate such things. That's why you need Reliance. Okay, next slide, please. So, I have said nice things about why we need Reliance, and my topic was actually bringing me to this. And I am afraid that I might even spend 2 minutes here. But let me tell you, challenges to implementation and opportunities for fostering regulatory reliance. So, number one, it's, you see, when you have a product, say your company X, and your product is registered in the US, it's registered in EMA, it's registered in Japan, in India, and then you have Kenya, and then you go to all the individual authorities and they're telling you, I want Amharic on my pack. That was Ethiopia recently, right? Then somebody else comes and says, you need to put Afrikaans. Then somebody else comes and says, oh, you need to put whatever local language they think about. Or sometimes they say, in our jurisdiction, we don't accept blisters, we only accept bottles. Or we prefer capsules and not tablets. So you find you have one molecule that is supposed or is intended to treat one disease, but in different jurisdictions, it has different versions of it. And because of the differences in all these jurisdictions, you need to get to a place where you can submit like a dossier. We were talking about dossier sameness. It was submitted in EMA as a capsule. You're coming here, you're submitting it as a tablet. How do you reconcile that whole picture with your authority? Because you're saying, okay, so regulator XYZ, this product is still the same, however, we have a different version because of ABCD. So that's one of the main challenges we're seeing. So this is why it is critical that agencies relying on reports from a trusted agency verify that they are receiving the same version of the product assessed by the trusted agency. It needs to be similar. And let me tell you, when I got to learn about Reliance and get used to Reliance, I had to learn how to start doing, what are they called, bridging assessment reports, where you're differentiating between the original dossier that was submitted, wherever it was submitted, vis-a-vis what you can submit here and what the Reliance guidelines require locally. And so it's something that plays out as one of the challenges. Number two is overly redacted inspection and assessment reports. So, first of all, these authorities, so say a product was submitted in, and I better use EMA a lot because I've relied on it some. So, you go to the EMA, there's the public assessment reports. Then you submit your dossier. Then the authority comes and says, no, we need the full assessment report. there are two things that play out here. First of all, your company might be hesitant to provide such information. Remember, I just feel like at this point, I want to say again, these are personal opinions, they're not the opinions of my employer. Please make sure that it's recorded. Anyway, but I just wanted to mention this aspect here, that sometimes you'll find that a dossier was submitted to Europe. Europe gave a positive opinion and the product is registered, right? Then you come here. Then an authority here in Nairobi, Kenya, queries something that was not noticed by the IMA authority. So immediately your company is concerned about making that submission to here and relying on assessment report somewhere, because they're concerned that your queries here might impact queries in the relying country. All right? Now the second aspect of this is the authority here, they want the full assessment report. They want the full assessment here. However, the authorities there can only provide, or based on how they are organized, they can only provide redacted assessment reports. And so you get stuck. And so the other thing that normally happens, I normally joke and say, Bana, the people who made laws in the 20th century, they came to bite us. As in, they just came to roost in 21st century, where data moves very fast, information moves very fast, and then it meets a legal document that says stop. Right? And that's how it plays out in this space. Number 3, assessors' hesitancy to use this type of pathways. In some countries, let me tell you this Africa of ours, regulatory officials may wonder about the implications of reliance for the security of their jobs, raising questions about how to assure that the value-added jobs will be available and whether people will be trained to do them. So this is just, it's normal. It's normal. When you see something new coming, or some people who are young and fresh and innovative and they know things, and then they come and meet people like us who are 20th century. And then it's scary. It becomes automatically scary because you're being told all this Reliance, continental listing, regional economic communities, and we are going to consolidate all this information and put it in one place. People get concerned. It automatically creates some level of fear because you wonder, what does that mean for me? Does it mean I'm redundant? And so they push back when it comes to Reliance. They say, if it's going to cut that timeline, I used to do this in 36 months. I'm assured of a job for 3 years because I have reviewed the dossier for 3 years. But then you're telling me it's going to be done in 6 months. Or 3 months in some cases. Or in the continental listing, once you have a recommendation and you're an AMA treaty country, it takes you 60 days and you're approved. So such things. And then number 4, of course, it's national requirements that need reassessment. Some countries require redundant lot release, local laboratory testing for authorization versus importation, and certificate of pharmaceutical products when the data in the certificate is available online from agency websites. Have you heard me? Like, this information is already there, but you're still expected to provide it. And even sometimes what we've seen is the laboratory does not have the capability or the capacity to do that test. So now what? What, from an advocacy and policy perspective, what I've been going around seeing different authorities and telling them, let us give you an analytical method first. Let us show you how it's analyzed before I ship a sample from wherever to this country. Let me show you that. Then we can come up with a mutual recognition or reliance mechanism for the labs, such that if I give you XYZ, you're able to rely on reports from maybe WHO pre-qualified labs, ISO accredited labs, and we move forward. Okay? So just 3 more, I promise. Need need of agreed upon metrics to determine if these pathways are beneficial. During the PAC session for CAPI, we were having a conversation, and we were saying we really need an industry paper, a position paper from industry to start telling us, do these pathways work? Or is it just, you remember that time when everybody was talking about what is my purpose? It was the buzzword. I need to find my purpose. Maybe it's something, maybe it's the new buzzword for the 21st century. We need to actually find out, is it working? Is it really, really working? Because company X's experience and company Y's experience could be totally different. Is it an internal resourcing thing? Is it that I did not make the follow-up that was needed? Or is it just good relationships with the authority? What was it? We need to find that out, and maybe I throw it to you, David. Give us a paper on that. Let us look at it. And don't just do for Kenya. Please support us with all the other places. It can be a good entry point for those spaces. And then transparency on what to do when there's a safety issue or other issues, and an agency used the Reliance pathway. So in safety, Reliance gives us up to, you have your product, it's in the market. But a lot of times, a lot of our authorities have not developed a mechanism for post-approval changes, for post-market surveillance, for everything that comes after. So you have a product, it's in the market, there's a safety issue. You relied on a certain market, this issue will not be there, then it's in your market. So what's the mechanism? How does it play out, So it's things like that. And then, of course, incentives for the agency to whom another agency relies. So by me going to ask IMA for information, I'm giving IMA a lot of work. What's their buying? Why should they be the relying agency? Why should I be the one who goes to them? Okay. Yeah. So with that, I just wanted to show you the next slide. It was supposed. I'm hoping it's done. Oh goodness gracious! Thank you. Let me tell you, on my whatever I'm reading, it didn't come. Here it's here. Anyway, so I just wanted to show you a few pathways that are already there, and I don't know if any of the other key speakers will speak about them, but we have the regional economic communities. That is REX. Regional economic communities. Before there was Continental and Africa Union model law, they were different regional economic communities. EAC was actually one of the first ones in Africa. But then we have others coming in and they've overtaken. We have ECOWAS. ECOWAS is for West Africa. And what it does there, it actually, the West African countries and the French-speaking countries like the Ivory Coast, the Gabon, all those guys, they rely through this pathway, they come in through this pathway. Then we have Zazibona. Zazibona is the SADC countries, the countries at the bottom, Ukuchini. Anyway, so it's the countries like Zambia. It's actually an acronym, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia. But now we have countries like South Africa in there. We have Angola that is working on their regulatory system in there. We have Malawi, Mozambique. Huh? Tanzania went there. Oh, it's both. So Tanzania is EAC, and then it's regional economic communities as Ibona. Then it also is mutual recognition with Rwanda. Okay. Tanzania is busy. Tanzania is very busy. Okay, and then of course we have OCRP, WHO CRP. This, I will not describe these processes, but guys, if you get time, just go and look at them. All this is online, read them, it's interesting. Then we have WHO pre-qualification and stroke SRA, and then I had spoken about Swiss Medic, and then the new baby in town is continental listing. Continental listing, we want to see if they promise the 260 days if they deliver. Yeah, and then IMA is now the biggest. Like for me, IMA is just, all of you know IMA, right? go with. So, how all these pathways work is they share data from one place to the other. Like, I will share data with Juliet, and then I'll share it with Doreen, and Doreen will share data back. All that is about data. And I just want to leave you with this quote. I think this quote is amazing. In God we trust. In everything. In God we trust. All others bring data. Bring data. If it's marriage, bring data. My friend, we need data. We are not moving anywhere without data, right? And in this space of regulatory, we need data. It was an honor speaking to you guys today evening, and enjoy your dinner.